Welcome back to my channel, Star Booze.
The mansion in North Shore owned by Michael Jordan is after more than a year, now under contract to Cade. Have you ever considered what happens to mansions after famous people leave? You may believe they always are fast because they're large and luxury. While it isn't usually the case, in actually, some of the most lavish celebrity residences wind up on the market without a customer for years. Whether the high cost is the reason, excessive upkeep, or the size of the tag, these traits frequently end up becoming a burden. In this video, we'll use assets instead of examine a few of the most well-known deserted celebrity homes that nobody wishes to purchase. Nicolas Cage's era. Buying a home and a mansion in New Orleans with a horrific past is not something that many would opt for. Nicolas Cage, which came to pass when he bought the Lowry residence in Newthis, wasn't your typical property. It was strongly associated with the infamous A woman from the realm of Madame Deline Leroy, famed for her harsh treatment in the 1800s regarding slaves, accounts of odd sounds, and for a long time, eerie apparitions have surrounded the mansion's creepy charm is enhanced. Situated in the center of France, the mansion has long been regarded as among the most haunted locations in the US that are drawing interested bystanders and the paranormal fans. Cage, renowned for high successive spending patterns and movie roles, were perhaps attracted toward to the mansion's gloomy and fascinating past. According to some, he was captivated by the home's association with paranormal, but others think it's real. Was just another audacious acquisition in his unconventional way of life. In 2007, he made the decision to purchase it, but only 2 years later, his financial difficulties started to appear. By 2009 saw the bank seize the property, since he was unable to keep it up, signaling a dramatic change in his luck. Despite the intriguing history of the house selling, it turned into a big contest, the amalgamation of its haunting reputation and the unfavorable state of the economy making the transaction challenging. For many, this situation demonstrates eager purchasers how even the most alluring properties can turn into a burden because of the burden of their past, and they bring with them financial difficulties. Mike Tyson's house in Connecticut. Tyson used to be the boxing king. The world had a home as magnificent as she's standing in Southampton. This mansion in Connecticut was over 50,000 square feet with all the amenities like an indoor pool and 18 bedrooms, a basketball court, and a nightclub. This was when his career was at its peak, when he was widely recognized for his skill in the ring. But in the direction of around the late 1990s, Tyson had significant financial troubles that made him sell the mansion in spite of its lavishness, and locating a buyer for a variety of luxury characteristics at a difficult task. And the mansion was also customized as well to fit Tyson's distinct way of life that makes it challenging for lovers to envision themselves residing there. It has been for sale for many years, several times, each time observing a decline in its cost following the failure to obtain a buyer at a fair loss. In this tale demonstrates how even the most magnificent house can become challenging to sell and maintain if they are excessively tailored to the owner's Sliverkney Rogers home in Grand Georgia. The renowned country music artist Rogers, the singer, owned a sizable Georgia estate, featuring a golf course and guest houses with the large horse stables. The land was a tiny piece of heaven, away from the bustle of the metropolis. Notwithstanding all of its facilities, the estate was its isolated position made it difficult to sell, less desirable to many, and the price of maintaining such a large facility did neither. It remained available for purchase for waiting a long time for the ideal buyer who might recognize its worth and oversee its maintenance. Picture yourself living in a location where golf can be played at any time you desired in your backyard, or move riding a horse without ever leaving. That was the type of life that was on your land. The Kenny Rogers estate provided, but precisely what made it unique as well, made selling it challenging because it was remote from regular conveniences, such as shops, the maintenance of offices and schools, alone and maintaining the immaculate golf course and the stables cleaning is rather expensive. Fourth mansion was on the market for years. There weren't many buyers that were interested, probably discouraged by the high upkeep expenses and the rematest estate's characteristics. It ultimately sold for a cost significantly less than what one might for such a magnificent location. This demonstrates the challenges when selling an expansive remote property. Nor regardless of how attractive or well-equipped, if the place isn't suitable or if it takes too much money and effort to keep looking for a buyer, can be a genuine and Burt Reynolds opulent. The estate of Burt Reynolds in Florida, a famous Hollywood personality, had Valhalla, is a gorgeous estate situated close to Hobbs Sound, Florida, and constructed in 1979. This enormous 12,500. The house was a real gym with a gym, a private movie theater, and a helicopter pad that is dispersed across 3-4 acres of land along the coastline. Yet even with estate's remarkable features, the design of the house made it difficult to sell. Can serve as a refuge for a famous person like Reynolds, offers seclusion and elegance, but the characteristics that made it ideal for him, but didn't appeal to a wider public. The outdated design and the significant maintenance expenses. The size of the property made it less appealing to prospective purchasers, as Reynolds experienced financial hardships, had to sell the estate in 2015 despite its stunning setting and the mansion's opulent amenities. Struggled to locate a buyer on several occasions, was offered for sale multiple times each, time with a reduced cost at last. It sold for $3.3 million, which is a huge difference to its original asking price of $15 million. This considerable decrease in pricing demonstrates the difficulties in selling big, outdated properties that are quite expensive. To preserve and update Valhalla's narrative serves as a warning regarding actual estate. Even the most opulent properties may end up becoming a liability if they didn't satisfy the demands and preferences of today off the market. Prospective purchasers were probably put off by the outdated layout and the difficult task of updating such. The story of this estate is told in its huge mansion, that even residences in desirable areas can stagnate in the marketplace if they're not updated, and if the maintenance is too costly. Aaron Spelling's enormous house. Imagine a mansion as large as Hill's mansion that features a movie about a beauty parlor, theater, a museum, and a bowling alley. This was Aaron's reality for dolls. Miss Spelling, a well-known TV producer, constructed one of the biggest residences in Los Angeles, sometimes called the Manor, is situated in Holly, a wealthy neighborhood. This home is 56,500 square feet, comprises 123 rooms and square feet. After Spelling's wife passed away in 2006, Candy Spelling made the decision to sell its huge house, but having trouble finding a buyer considering how large and specialized property turned out to be somewhat difficult. The scale and maintenance required for such a vast and opulent estate made it a strong pitch on the yearly expenses just to keep the area in a state of not staggering, not to mention the requirement for a sizable workforce to control its different characteristics. It was first offered for sale for astronomical $150 million, which reflects its splendor, and the Spelling of the investment had transformed into a house that was out of this planet. But in spite of its glitz and the distinctive qualities that make it, the mansion didn't sell soon at all. For years, it was available for purchase, as it's possible that prospective buyers were intimidated by the property's immense size and the continuous costs that it would involve ultimately. The mansion discovered a new British proprietor, Aries Petra. Ecclestone observed the worth of this opulent home and paid $85 million for it, much lower than the original asking price. This transaction demonstrated how even the most unique residences can be when they are excessively large. They are challenging to sell and have high maintenance requirements. The mansion of Spelling is the ideal land illustration of how distinctive, custom-built luxury residences can surpass the practical requirements and most buyers' financial capabilities, making they are difficult to sell in the ordinary real world. Michael Jackson Estate Market Neverland Ranch was more than that. More than a house. It was a representation of the dreams and imagination of Michael Jackson. The Santan Valley is home to this 2,700-acre estate in California. Wasn't merely a residence, but a personal zoo-themed amusement park. That was a beautiful area with rides and a theater. That was exactly like Jackson's sexive and irrational way of living. Nevertheless, following Jackson's passing in 2009, Neverland Ranch experienced a lot of obstacles that made it difficult to sell. The enormous size of the site and the important major obstacles were the cost of maintenance. Running a zoo and keeping people entertained. Not only are rides expensive, but they also need ongoing care and a specialist team, as well as the association of the ranch. Jackson's complex legacy was added to an additional layer of selling challenges. At first, it was listed for $100 million. The cost was continually lowered throughout the years, illustrating the difficulties facilitating a buyer prepared to accept such. In 2020, a distinctive and challenging property. Ron Burkle, a billionaire, acquired that property for only $22 million, which is a small portion of the initial asking price. Was so high. Price drop demonstrates how difficult the market may include homes that have a close relationship with a one as famous as Jackson Neverland served as both a home and a fragment of the history of pop culture that needed more than just money in order to keep it maintained. A vision that was consistent with its heritage. The Neverland Ranch narrative demonstrates how distinctive qualities, while stunning and stocked with conveniences, can turn into difficult to sell because of the high expenses and specialized nature connected to their maintenance. Kelly House in Olympia Fields, a sleepy town there, is a large home in Illinois that used to be a part of R. Kelly. Picture a location that this mansion is so large that it resembles a tiny village. Covers a massive 18,500 square feet. Yes, there are 6 bedrooms where Yahoo's 8 bedrooms, a pool, and a bathroom. There is a private lake inside the house where you could even find a location to row a boat. Kelly purchased this to play basketball. Enormous home from the 1990s, when he was thriving in his musical career. However, as the years passed, he encountered several significant financial and legal issues. The issues became so severe that he had to sell his enormous house in 2013. It's sort of sad when you consider that it must abandon something you used to enjoy because the situation deteriorated when it was time. It wasn't easy to sell the house because of R. Kelly's hands are exceptionally good. Problems with the law that few people wanted to purchase it, but most likely didn't desire a home that included such type of history, hence the cost had to be reduced a lot. The initial price was $5 million. However, nobody was chewing it, so it remained on the market for an extended period. and they maintained, finally lowering the price further and more after multiple attempts and significant price reductions in 2019. It was purchased for a mere $1.70 million, which is far less than the original cost, which merely illustrates how the difficulty of selling a home that there are even some unfavorable stories connected to it. Selena, if it's as elegant as this one now, Dion's Waterpark Mansion in Florida. Let's discuss a genuinely unusual home, the old home of Celine Dion, situated near Jupiter Island, Florida. This not just any mansion. It was similar to having a theme park in your property's backyard, stretched out over 5.7 acres on the water's edge, and the primary residence was 10,000 square feet in size. Its unique qualities were what made it so exceptional. Yes, you heard correctly. A water park. There were multiple swimming pools at the water park. Floating on a lazy river on a hot. Imagine having a day in even water slides. Many enjoyable things in your neighborhood. In addition to the water park, there was a tiny home where visitors can have fun. Celine Dion on a tennis court and playing golf attempted to sell this amazing location in 2013 for $72.5 million. Nevertheless, the problem is the amount of water was very extravagant. It was a park with other upscale characteristics. Difficult to locate a buyer for it. The maintenance only. Maintaining all those pools, it would be quite expensive to clean and run. As the years passed, the mansion didn't sell. The cost was simply too much for a majority of individuals, and the reality that it was more difficult to sell because of this. But someone eventually purchased it in $201,728 million as a substantial sum of money. However, it was still significantly less than this story's initial asking price. Is excellent illustration of how occasionally even the most intriguing and stylish residences can sometimes be too much for the majority of individuals to manage. Merely about having sufficient funds to purchase it. It also has to do with keeping up with all the expenses and labor required to keep up a place like Whitney Houston's residence in a peaceful area of New Jersey. Standing in Mendham, New Jersey, was the mansion of Whitney Houston. The well-known vocalist considered residing in a home so big that it is enormous, covering 12,500 square feet. Built in 1987, isn't it this enormous? Everything you could possibly want was in the house. A studio where Whitney recorded her music and a swimming pool for scorching days. There are 5 bedrooms available and 6 bathrooms. Whitney occupied this residence for more than 15 years. It was her own scape, her area to live and create at. As her financial and personal mansion's maintenance became more problematic, it slipped away, which is heartbreaking to consider. But the house became dilapidated. But it wasn't the place that used to be colorful and lively following Whitney's death in 2012. Her lovely house was up for sale, but this is how the selling point turned out to be extremely challenging. The fashion of the house appeared to be ideal in the 80s, out of date by that time as well, because the house was set to as the location where Whitney had severe issues that few people desired to purchase it. They most likely had no desire for a home. With such a depressing backstory, the mansion was deserted after a year-long standing product on the market, and the price continued to decline in the expectation of discovering it first. A buyer listed for $2.5 million. The cost had to be reduced greatly over the years. Ultimately, in 2014 saw someone purchase it, but just it's $1 million less for $1.5 million greater than the initial cost. In this case, it demonstrates the difficulty of selling a home that is old, not just physically but also has a significant emotional legacy. It's a reminder that a house isn't constructed entirely of roofs and walls, as well as the recollections and the environment that exists inside the residence of Whitney Houston. Complete with everything it was a dream home in terms of grandeur and history. Tough sell that reflected how personal failures can eclipse even the most opulent of homes. Michael, let's discuss about Jordan's Highland Park Estate. Michael, about a huge mansion. Jordan's Highland Park Estate, Chicago suburb. This place is huge, encompassing 56,000 square feet, or around having your own small village. The home has 15 baths, 9 bedrooms, a tennis court, and a unique space for a salesman and to smoke cigars devoted to wine. It's more than just a residence. In 2012, Michael made an attempt to make $29 million from this enormous house. However, it's been more than 10 years and nobody has purchased it yet. So why do you may be curious about how good the mansion is? It was specially made for Michael Jordan, designed to accommodate all of his unique preferences and needs. Even if that seems fantastic, it also makes it difficult for other people to see themselves residing there. Over time, the mansion's price has been reduced down multiple times, even attempting to sell it at a 2013 auction, but nobody did. It appears that the very features that add uniqueness to the mansion Michael Jordan is the catalyst behind it is challenging for people to desire to purchase it. Sell such a distinctive and customized property is quite difficult. People seek a location to call home. Something seems like it might belong to them, as if they were residing in another person's matchless mansion in space, with all its personal touches and luxury. Are an excellent illustration of how challenging it may be to find someone who wants to buy a house that's too personalized. This Michael Taylor Jordan's Unsold estate reveals Abigail isn't necessarily a major point. Better and more intimate doesn't always mean more attractive. It's a home that was constructed for a legendary athlete, but but has had trouble finding a new owner to serve as a lesson in the field of real estate regarding the difficulties of selling highlight personalized homes for celebrities. If you'd like, remember to like and comment on this video for more captivating videos. Subscribe. Make sure to see the upcoming video that appear on your screen right now.